Hey, what's up, people? This is Joseph's Utification, and that's with me, Joseph, aka Uncle J, coming to talk to you about a whole heap of stuff. Well, what I'm trying to say is that I can be talking to you about a whole heap of stuff, but today is my post comments on UFC 125, which was headlined by Frankie, Edgar, and Maynard. We'll get to that fight later. First, I want to talk about Leben versus Brian Stann. Yeah, that's the one. Leben versus Brian Stann. Now, a lot of people were kind of hyping Leben before the fight that he's tough, especially for his last two fights because he showed a lot of heart. He has a lot of experience. I personally just thought he was a bit overhyped. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's an alright fighter, but I don't think he was as good as people were making him out to be before this fight took place. However, I did kind of pick him to beat Brian Stann, and that was just because I just thought Brian Stann wasn't really anything special either, and I think Leben brought more to the table in terms of skill set, experience, and believe it or not, toughness that people were hyping about. However, it was one of those fights that, either I could see it happen either way, and Brian Stann ended up knocking him out. I didn't expect him to knock him out in the way he did, which is I was kind of surprised. I thought if Brian Stann was to manage to knock him out, it would probably happen in like round 2 or 3. But it wasn't that much of a shock. A little bit of a surprise, but not that much of a shock. Second fight I want to talk about is Takanori Gomi, or let me just call him Gomi for short, versus Guida. This fight was funny to me. I'm sorry, it was funny. Before the fight, I could see Guida giving Gomi problems because Guida has this relentless wrestling style where he's just doesn't run out of energy. He's on top of you. He's just an awkward, irritating fighter. If you're his opponent, I mean, he's just in front of you. But at the same time, I saw Gomi as being having the edge in terms of stuffing his takedowns and of course the power in his hands. Now, Guida of course did his erratic dancing around thing during the fight, but it was effective. He was utilizing leg kicks. Obviously he utilized his wrestling, and he got the submission at the end of the fight. So as random and erratic as his movements was, it was effective, and I have to say, it was good performance. I mean, he won at the end of the day. Does that mean, can I see him like hanging out with the top lightweights? No, not really. I kind of just see him being kept around because he's an exciting fighter in the sense that he goes for it, he gives 110%. But I don't really ever see him reaching that top 5 lightweights in the UFC. I mean, when you see his performances against people like Kenny Florian, even Diego Sanchez, you can tell that really he's not quite there yet. However, I still feel he's going to improve as a fighter because he does have that X factor in the terms of being relentless and just having never-ending energy, really. Next fight, Thiago Silva versus Brandon Vera. This fight, I don't know what Thiago's beef was with Brandon Vera because anyway, I'll get to that. Now, people were saying Brandon Vera, should beat Thiago Silva. This is what they were saying before the fight. Me personally, I don't know. Brandon Vera hasn't looked good for a while, to be honest. He has the ability, but he hasn't shown that ability in a while. That's what I would say. Even though for me, he beat Randy Couture, but he didn't look good in that fight. Thiago, on the other hand, is a beast. Do you know what I mean? He's good with his hands. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Even when Rashad beat him, for me, that's what I call a survival victory on Rashad Evans' part. So even though he won, but he's kind of won and survived. I think if that was a 5-round fight, Thiago would have destroyed Rashad Evans. I'm a fan of Rashad, but hey, I'm just saying the truth. And that's what happened. I mean, you had in this fight, Thiago just dominated Brandon Vera, even made him look like an idiot, busted up his nose. Brandon Vera did have some good moments. There were some elements in terms of striking, but that's all he had. I mean, once it got to that grappling stage, he just didn't have an answer. He was literally just sitting there. I was getting frustrated. Like, what are you doing? Move. He was literally just sitting in the corner and taking licks from Thiago to the point that Thiago was, you know, playing a little drum behind him. You know, it was, I don't know, man. I don't think UFC should cut Brandon Vera, but I think they should discipline him. They should talk to him about that performance. But Thiago, well done. I think Thiago is definitely one of the top 205ers. I think they should put him. His next opponent should be a top 205. I mean, he's been out for a while, but this was a nice warm-up fight. I think he should take on Machida. Yeah, Lyoto Machida did knock him out. For me, he's the only person that has beaten Thiago. So maybe a Thiago Machida rematch. That would be a good next fight for Thiago. Anywho, Nate Diaz versus Dong Hyun Kim, DHK. Now this was a really, really, really good fight. If you really love your grappling, you really appreciate this fight. DHK is a 4th degree black belt in judo, and we can see why when you watch this fight. I mean, he was. I mean, Nate Diaz jiu-jitsu was off the chain in this fight. I mean, I actually believe that if they were wearing gis, I feel he would have submitted DHK. I think he would have submitted him because he was on it. Towards the end of the fight, again, he exploded, but it was too little, too late. Because DHK, you know, what they call him, stun gun. He just, for the first 2 rounds, he just dominated him on the ground in terms of the grappling. It wasn't really, he didn't, I mean, when I say dominate, he didn't dominate actually, sorry, let me take that back. He controlled Nate Diaz on the ground. It was a really close fight. I mean, if I was to grade the whole fight in terms of overall, it would be like a 10-9 fight to Dong Hyun Kim, in the sense that if they fought again, I still wouldn't know who would win. But it was a really close fight, good performance by both guys. Nate Diaz was just unlucky, really. It just wasn't his night, and it's a shame because I think he fought very well. I think Nate Diaz has a lot of potential. I just think if he can just add a little bit of wrestling to his game, he would be a force to be reckoned with on any, whether it's at 150 pounds or 170 pounds. Alrighty then, let's get to the main event. Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard. And now a lot of people said Gray Maynard was going to win that fight, and when you watch the first round, we can see why. He basically caught Frankie with a I think it was a left hook, which kind of stunned Frankie, and it was just downhill from there for Frankie. I mean, Gray Maynard jumped on him and just beat the living crap out of him. But Frankie Edgar, being the man that he is, somehow survived, and he was even coming back with a little bit of shots, even though he was still wobbled and stuff, and just survived that round. But for me, that was a good round for Gray Maynard, but for me, from the 2nd to the 5th round, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, for me, Frankie won all those rounds. I kid you not, he won all those rounds. For me, he got better of Gray on the feet. He got Gray in terms of the grappling. Went for a couple of submissions. For me, I think Frankie Edgar won that fight. That's me. I mean, if you disagree with me, feel free to put your comments below. But I feel Frankie Edgar won that fight. I'm sorry. Gray Maynard won the first round. Even if you give it 10-7. That's the most you can do because Frankie still kind of came back. 10-7. Do you know what I mean? And then what? 10-9, 10-9, 10-9 to Frankie. What's that? 37 against what? 9 times 3, 27. Oh, it's a draw. 37-37. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it should have been a draw. The arithmetic does say that. So actually, maybe it was a draw. See me? Hey, I can put my hands up when I'm wrong. So I'm going to go with a draw with that one. Alright. At the end of every show, at the end of every video, I like to leave a scripture for people to go and look at. So the scripture I'm going to leave you to look at in the Bible is going to be 1 Corinthians 13 verse 1 to 13. And I like this scripture because I think it covers the foundation of Christianity, which is love. So that's my scripture for today's video. Okay, thank you very much for joining me and watching my video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to look at my channel as a whole, which is Joseph's Beautification. I have loads of different videos on there. I have me doing a bit of stand-up. I have me doing some skits. You see me doing a bit of martial arts myself. And also I do a lot of youth and community work, but I like using media like filmmaking and making video magazines. So there's loads of that on my channel as well. So
yeah, I don't just do reviews or comments or analysis. I do other stuff. So check it out. You know, feel free, have fun. Some of them are just 2 minutes. Some of them are longer. But just check it out. Just have a breeze through my channel, or just wait for me when I do my next analysis. So until then, later.